You are listening to the regular version of Sexy Marriage Radio. smrnation.com.
You've turned on Sexy Marriage Radio, where the best sex happens in the marriage bed. Here's your host, Dr. Corey Allen.
Welcome back to another episode of Sexy Marriage Radio, where each and every week I'm joined by my lovely wife, Pam.
I'm here. Good to be with you.
And we go where the nation wants to go. Mm-hmm. With the questions that you've got on your mind, the emails that have come in to either feedback at sexymarriageradio.com or some direct messages that we get via the platform at my.smrnation.com, which is free to join. Mm-hmm. And then there's levels in there that you can get deeper conversations like the Academy. And then groups, if you're a part of a group, that's where all that's happening. Mm-hmm. Courses are on their way pretty quick. They're about to roll out the first course, which will be a fantastic resource to offer up.
Okay.
Then we also have our voicemail line at 214-702-9565, where we want to talk about what you want to talk about. What helps you? What do you got going on? What are your struggles? That's where we're heading today, by the way.
What are your struggles?
Questions of some people that have got some issues that have come up.
Good.
And so
that's what we're here for.
We're gonna dive in. Plus, we got a little bit of feedback from a topic we've discussed before.
Okay.
Someone's jumping in to give a different side.
All right.
Of the equation. So, if you like what we got going on, we got to say thank you to the nation, and we want your help. And that is, you can jump on iTunes or Spotify or Stitcher, iHeartRadio, however you choose to listen, and rate and review the show. Leave a comment. Help us spread the word that married sex is the hotbed for sex. And over the years that we've been doing this, and it continues to grow, that's because of the nation. Mm-hmm. And you spread the word, that helps it impact other people. So jump on board and let's help people just really experience better sex.
Yeah, if it's helping you, share the love.
Well, coming up on today's regular free version of Sexy Marriage Radio is what I alluded to earlier with a couple of questions that have come in, Pam, and our answers, plus a little bit of additional information for a conversation that we had prior. Okay. And then on the extended version of Sexy Marriage Radio today, which is deeper, longer, and there are no ads, you can subscribe at smrnation.com/SMR Academy and either choose the extended content or go all the way and get to the Academy where there's monthly Q&A calls and a lot more discussions that take place. It's part 4. It's the last of the Q&A that took place at the Getaway at the middle of June in 2021. And again, I'm so impressed all the time with the questions that we get, whether at the Getaway or from our listeners. And then on this one particularly, the dialogues that took place, where people were jumping in to offer up thoughts. So the questions that were asked and submitted, actually it became a group at times answering, which
truly feels like a community when you got that going, right?
It was a great conversation. So all that's coming up on today's show. So this is a follow-up to an episode we did not too long ago, Pam, where we were talking to an emailer whose wife refused to talk about sex in any way. Right, every time he brought it up,
I remember.
She shut it down. Mm-hmm. And so this is an email that just as a guy saying, hey, I discovered your show 2 months ago. My wife and I have really enjoyed the content. It has, to say the least, sparked some interesting conversations for us, which is great. Mm-hmm. So while listening to that episode, he thinks our advice to the listener whose wife refused to discuss sex in any way was good, but I think we missed an opportunity to suggest an alternative. It appears that the outright discussion of sex is a negative trigger for his wife. So rather than being so overt, many of the same messages he's trying to get across can be done in a more family-friendly manner that may well be better received. So instead of whispering in her ear, "You're so sexy," what if you wrapped your arms around her and said, "You're so beautiful"? Instead of, "That really turns me on. I love it when you do that," state it in a simple, loving way in conjunction with a gentle touch. Show appreciation that goes far beyond the mere sexual. So he's kind of, just tweaking it slightly to make it more global rather than a true sexual content or context statement. Hopefully, these types of interactions can become their own vocabulary that works for them on both sides. If this allows him to express his desires in a way that doesn't trigger the shutdown, it may allow forward movement on the other more intimate conversations. I realize it's not as clean as you normally counsel, and this may have already been tried and failed, but I think sometimes there's more than just one path to the destination.
No, you're exactly right. Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely, because there is this element of some of the things that work for other people will work for others too, right? Like we fine tune it and you massage it to your particular unique circumstance.
Well, and if you keep just circling back to the you're so sexy, well, that when you're talking to a lower desire person, that just may continue to trigger the, God, all you're thinking is sex, right? And we're trying to bring about the idea that everything is not about sex, right? It's a more global conversation. Is what's your entire life? What's your entire perspective? What's your entire vocabulary comprised of?
Right.
It's a bigger picture.
And this is the duality of everything, though, because I could bring up a comment of, man, you're so beautiful, and you interpret that as all you ever think about is sex.
I could, potentially, yeah.
Right. And so usually in a marriage where there's maps of communication over the history and the time frame of the relationship, you know that, yeah, those both exist. A statement can have both. Mm-hmm. And so it's just recognizing that's the willingness to take the hit for it. But I do like where he's going with this on what if I fine tune it slightly to help see if it lands a little bit better. Keep it more in the romantic rather than the sexual. Because it's a shorter distance from the romantic to the sexual rather than the distance it is from the everyday conversation to the sexual. So if you can kind of keep it in that perspective, that might be incredibly beneficial. So well done jumping into the conversation. PaintYourLife.com.
I love these new partnerships.
And when we first heard about it, I thought, what a great idea. Mm-hmm. Because what they do is you submit any picture you want of your family, your friends, a couple, a pet, any kind of occasion, and then it is given to an artist that's on their team, a world-class artist that will take every detail and turn it into a painting. And so my initial thought was, this has got to be so expensive. But you know what? It's actually a very truly affordable price.
Yeah, real reasonable for good quality work.
And it's a completely easy, user-friendly platform. Helps you order a custom-made, hand-painted portrait in less than 5 minutes, and then you actually get the hand-painted portrait in about 3 weeks. So you can send any picture you want of yourself, your children, family, special place. We sent one of a great memory.
From a vacation.
A vacation, and the pose that we often have done at a lot of our different vacations, especially when the children were a lot younger. Mm-hmm. But it makes a perfect birthday, anniversary, or wedding gift, and I'm blown away by the quality, the ease in which it was done, and the affordability of this kind of a gift. Mm-hmm. So at PaintYourLife.com, there's no risk. If you don't love the final painting, your money's refunded, guaranteed. And right now, for a limited time offer, you get 20% off your painting. That's right. So it's 20% off and free shipping. To get this special offer for our listeners, you need to text the word marriage, MARRIAGE, to 64,000. He's going to type out that numbers. That's marriage to 64,000. Text marriage to 64,000, and Paint Your Life will help you celebrate the moments that matter the most. Terms are available, and you can find those at paintyourlife.com/terms. Again, text marriage to 64,000 to take advantage of this fantastic offer and truly unique gift. So an email from a wife that says, my husband and I have been listening to SMR for the past year, and it's been a way to help us navigate my issues with sex. Your podcast has been so helpful that we can't say enough about how much you've helped us through this challenging issue. It's so hard to talk about, but you've enabled us to communicate about sex so much easier, which is fantastic.
Right.
I've come a long way in opening up to understanding my sexual hang-ups. My low desire and lack of adventure has impacted our marriage for the last 22 years. But as I'm becoming more adventurous and my sexual drive is increasing, my husband is now feeling resentment. He feels like this should have happened many years ago. We love each other deeply. Can you please give us any advice for helping him let go of resentment and for me to release the guilt that I feel?
We're both hesitating here. Like, who's going to go first? You go. You go.
I was just trying to see what your face was from this.
Well, I'm just thinking of the don't cry over spilled milk. I mean, it is better today, so let's roll with that.
Yeah.
And though you might be disappointed that, man, we missed out on all those years, what good does that do? It doesn't. I mean, history is good for us to learn from, but if we try and hold ourselves slave to what history was, we're never going to continue moving forward. We've got to learn from the history, move forward, be appreciative of what we learned from it, because it may not have tasted as sweet today or tomorrow had we not gone through what we went through in the past.
Sure. And there's also a distinct possibility that where she is, specifically since she's the one talking about this, that where she is now, she wasn't capable of in the past. Because it's not just that we all of a sudden address some sexual hang-up, that we have a breakthrough. It's typically in conjunction with some other things that have been going on in our life too. I start to see myself in a different way beyond just the sexual.
Right.
I start to recognize my capabilities in other areas. I start to see a more well-rounded or more refined or an ability to speak the hard things with other people. And maybe I kind of climb the ladder where I started with it easy on the people that it weren't high up the hierarchy, and I've worked my way up to family members now. And so we evolve as people, and it's not a linear, but it's close way, because there's a lot of different circumstances that can be a catalyst for change. It's not always A plus B equals C plus D. You know, it's not always that clean, but there's a synergy and a scaffolding, if you will, that I create a little bit of a self, and then I step up on that level. And I'm a little unsure with myself at times. Yeah. And I'm not quite, I've had this doing the show over almost a decade now, that there's times where we get a topic that comes in and I'm thinking it through, or I get a client that I'm working with and I'm thinking it through in real time. And I'm going like, I hope they don't really see, I don't really know what I'm talking about with this. I have an idea, but I'm kind of out on a limb.
Okay.
Right. And over time you kind of get to where it's like, look, I can go out on these limbs and it's okay. Because if I fall, that's all right. I'll figure it out because we're just trying things out. We're trying to see what works. And that's just a growing into life that it's very possible that even he wasn't capable of her adventurousness early on too.
Yeah.
Because it could have been like, whoa, I'm not prepared for this. And so I like what you're saying in the sense that crying over spilled milk, over getting where we wanted to go, is wasting energy. Because what you're actually doing then is you're still living in the past rather than celebrating the moment.
Right.
And what you've become and the value that you have. Because yes, we need to honor where we were in the journey we've been on to get to where we are. But I can't just sit back and reflect on it as if there's nothing else still going on now. That's
right. Focus my energy on thankfulness.
Yep.
Right. It's I wake up and every moment that she feels guilty, every moment that he feels the resentfulness, I got to switch that into thankfulness. Thank you for what today holds.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you that maybe we're not facing the same issue we were facing 5 years ago.
Okay.
It's a new one.
Yep.
But thank you for where we've come. And when I can change that mindset.
Yeah. And I do want to speak to, as we end this point with this email, to her idea of how do I let go of my guilt? How do I release the guilt that I feel? This usually requires a little bit more in-depth, honest assessment of self. Because if there were times where maybe over the years, in the recent past, she truly had more thoughts about, maybe I could reach out and talk about this with somebody else. Maybe because I don't know what it is other than she alludes SMR has helped her, but it's got to be other things too.
Well, something made her go searching for it.
Right. Or a good friend has come along. You've had that in our journey of timely friendship conversations
Definitely.
that have been very pointed about marriage or relationship that have really been pivotal.
Yep. And just been there for that season.
Right.
Right.
And so not knowing all of that, if there were times where I had the best intention, but I kept letting it slip and not following through, ask yourself the questions of what's that about? Because maybe that guilt is actually something I need to release of myself, in the sense that, yeah, I didn't follow through. It wasn't that I held back necessarily, or I was scared, or I didn't know. It was when I get that point of awareness, but I didn't actually do anything about it. That's the stuff I need to address better. But when I get to the point of it's just kind of uncertain, and it's unclarity, and it's fear-based. Yeah, some of that is just the natural. I'm coming up against something in my comfort zone, and I don't want to get out of my comfort zone. And so I don't want to see people beat themselves up for that. That's almost like in an ignorance state. I just didn't know what I didn't know. But once my eyes were opened, if I didn't take steps that follow through, that's the stuff I need to be more honest with myself about. On what was that about? What was it that took me the 2 years to actually finally then find a podcast, or pick up a book, or call a therapist, or talk to a friend about this, or, because we all have the developmental process of, I want to grow into something and stretch into something, and I need some time for under the surface of the water work before I can really bring it up to above the surface and do it, because it's scary.
Right.
To really speak a truth, or do something different, or try something else in my sexual arena. That, yeah, that's a real stretch to me. So I'm more curious for them now is, how do you celebrate where you are now and realize the work that you've gone through in the 22 years to get here? You still got a lot of time left. Celebrate that. Test it out.
Keep working.
Keep working. See how adventurous you can be, and have fun, and then let us know. All right, Pam. So this is one that we have not talked about on the show before.
What? Okay.
So
I guess there's plenty of topics.
there are plenty of topics. Absolutely.
We still haven't covered.
It might have been alluded to. I'm going through the archives in my head, but I don't think it has been, at least to this detail that we're about to go. So this is from a husband that says, "Thank you for your podcast. It's been very encouraging to me and instrumental in me being a better husband. I have an issue which I'm hoping you could shed some light on. Lately, I have found myself being drawn to women's underwear. I don't want to be a woman. I love being a man, and I love my wife with all my heart. But I have occasions where the thought of wearing women's underwear is very appealing. This, I believe, started after my wife got me a pair of men's thongs, which I enjoy very much wearing. I even got myself a few more. Now, I'm very drawn to the garments, which are very feminine. I have a desire to purchase them, but first I need to talk to my wife to be sure that she's okay with it. At the same time, I can't help but think I'm heading in a sinful direction. I only care to wear these clothes privately and not to advertise to anyone. There's an inner battle in me, and I don't get it, so I would appreciate your counsel."
Well, if it's just wearing something.
Right. First off is the idea of, personally, the idea of a thong for a man, I don't equate to feminine.
I don't
I don't think
that
a thong
either.
is feminine or masculine. It's neither. It's just erotic. More so than a lot of the other underwear options that are out there.
Right. I would agree with that.
So some of the way it's described is, because the subject line of this email was actually thoughts. What are our thoughts on cross-dressing?
Okay.
Right. And which can lead to a lot of different reactions from people.
Yeah.
When you hear that word.
Yeah.
But it's just recognizing what I'm hearing in it is he's drawn to the erotic side of it, and also maybe the texture of the women's undergarment.
They can definitely be silky and more alluring.
They are different than a lot of men's underwear.
Than a pair of tidy whities or something.
There's a big gap in a lot of, if you just put it in the standardized men's and women's undergarment realm, there's a huge difference between the two in the way they feel. And so I can understand the idea of the texture of that is so much more appealing. So in that regard, great. Enjoy it.
Yeah. I guess
that's feeling good.
Yeah. I don't necessarily think that what he's referring to, at least in that email, I would call cross-dressing. I guess then the follow-up question is he concerned about what his wife thinks, right? Does it wig her out if he's, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I'm curious.
She bought him the thong.
I'm curious what the impetus of that was. That had to be a backstory of some sort, because it's not very often where a spouse would just, hey, I bought these for you. There's typically it's meaning something.
Yeah, well, maybe it's something she digs and she wanted to see him in it.
Maybe so, and she digs it. And it's that idea of, okay, wait, that's just showing off more of you. Because maybe he's got a particularly good body, especially when it's in a thong. And so it's just, I think it's what I'm hearing in all of this when I initially read it too, when it came in a couple weeks ago, was I'm hearing the taboo and the borderline. This is like what we talked about at the getaway, where the wife found the husband's dildo.
Right.
And that, in a lot of people's minds, that immediately equates to same-sex attraction and homosexuality and all. No, not necessarily. Sometimes we need to slow down, ask some pointed questions, because I'm just hearing this because of the way he's framing it as, I don't have a desire to be feminine. I'm drawn to the feminine undergarment. I'm drawn to some nuance of it, some aspect of it.
Well, that's all he's saying in that's what he comes out and says in the email. Well, right?
Well, it is, but it's something. There's something more in it in the way I'm hearing this, because he can't help but think he's heading in a sinful direction. Right? Because I'm thinking there's an undercurrent in this that's got more to it, because there's some nuance, some added flair,
Well, if there's so much baggage there, though, when you're talking about heading in a sinful direction, that could just be that the way he grew up, any thought of
true.
Even
any thought of anything erotic like that.
Yeah, it would be quote unquote sinful.
Okay.
And that's not what it's saying here. I think there's a lot of meaning behind what he's throwing out there that you and I don't have the knowledge of.
No, we don't, because we don't have enough of the backstory for him.
Right.
And again, I think where you and I both would land, where I will definitely land with this, is if it's something that's between you and your wife, and it's a secret thing that she's on board with, okay with, even if it's further than this.
Secret with the two of you, don't keep a secret from each other.
Thank you for the clarification. But it sounds like it's one of those things that is openly discussed. Then what's the meanings of them? And how do you celebrate them? How do you kind of embrace them? Because these are the things that, if the things in our life, especially in our sexual side of things, the things that I think are no-go, taboo, bad, I have a part of me that gets drawn even more to them. But if I can disarm some of that taboo to see it as, what's the real meaning of this? Not the wet paint, do not touch.
Right.
But instead, what's underneath it all?
Right.
What's my desire to test that out? What is it really tied to? Because what I think of is a story Shannon would say, and she said this way back in the archives too, of a man that was drawn to women's pantyhose.
Yeah.
And it was because
she shared this at one of the getaways
right,
as well.
because as a child, he had incredibly fond memories of being able to, as a kid, straddle grandma's leg while she rocked him and bounced him up and down, right?
Like giddy up, a rocking horse.
And that brought fond memories and a connection to that garment. So it wasn't necessarily a sexual fetish as much as it was understanding a meaning of, wait, okay, there's ways that can still be navigated within the context of a marriage rather than going further. And that's what I'm hearing from him of, hey, you have a wife that's a good sounding board to things, it sounds like. So bring the stuff out in the open. And if she's like, no, that's too far. Now you can start to look at, okay, what's the real meaning of this? What's my drive or desire to want to push that even further or test something out? Or if it's not that, then celebrate it and wear something that makes you feel good underneath your clothes as you go throughout the day and walk around proudly. Mm-hmm. That's no different than how we encourage every one of us to have confidence in how you get yourself going each day.
Right.
How you carry yourself, how you conduct yourself. And if there's something going on that adds a spark and a flair to your life, especially a sexual little ting there, great. Have a great time and enjoy the journey. Just keep it out in the open as much as you can with your wife.
For sure.
I am never ceasing to be amazed by the Sexy Marriage Radio Nation and the emails that we get, the feedback that we get, the support that we get, the encouragements that we get.
The fun that they have together on the community. I just,
all the way around.
Yeah, right
all the way around. It's so great to be a part of something where we can help frame conversations. It impacts people, which then impacts their people that they touch and interact with, and on and down the line it goes.
Yeah.
And it's such a blessing, and it's because of the Sexy Marriage Radio Nation we get to keep doing this thing.
Love it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, that's all for today. If there's anything we left undone, let us know. 214-702-9565, feedback at sexymarriageradio.com. Or if you're not a part of our platform at my.smrnation.com, jump on board and jump into the conversations. There's some great people there. You can be one of them. We'll see you next time.